I mean, this is just one of the greatest ironies about divorced couples is that they still fight like they did when they were married.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things we try to teach them, look, you want to be a good co-parent. I call it, you got to act divorced. I mean, you don't have the right to tell your ex what to do with their life anymore. When you were married, you tried that. Did it go well? No, it didn't. How's it going to go now that you're divorced? Like, even worse, like, stop pretending like you have the right to speak into their life, to tell them who to date, not to date, and how to parent the children. And you can articulate, and you should, in a calm, courteous manner, things that you prefer that they do. You should try to come together around values that you, but after that, it is not up to you. And you got to let it go and just parent the way you want to parent.
Ladies, your husband isn't always easy to read, right? But we can help. We surveyed over 600 husbands and we uncovered their deepest desires. Discover our top 10 things husbands want their wives to understand and 10 things that you can do about it. It's yours today for any donation to Awesome Marriage. Welcome to today's Awesome Marriage podcast. Blended families are beautiful, but they can also be incredibly complex. When two lives and often two sets of kids, two households, and two histories come together, it is not always easy to figure out what normal looks like anymore. From divided loyalties to differing parenting styles, from navigating ex-spouses to finding unity in finances and faith, there's a lot of work to go through. That's why I'm so excited for today's conversation with Ron Deal. Ron is a good friend. He's one of the leading voices in helping blended families thrive. He's the director of Family Life Blended, the author of several books, including The Smart Step Family. His wisdom has helped countless couples build homes rooted in grace, understanding, and God's truth. So whether you're part of a blended family yourself or walking alongside someone who is, this conversation is full of encouragement and real hope. Let's meet Ron right now. Well, Ron, welcome back to the Awesome Marriage Podcast. It's so good to have you back to talk about a subject that I know has been dear to your heart for a long time. And I found you when I was trying to help blended family couples and was so grateful at that time. And just thank you for what you've done in that area of helping people that are in a situation that most couples have no idea what to do and don't. We love I heard you say we love each other, and then we thought that was enough.
Yeah, we thought that was enough. Well, thanks, Kim, for having me back. It's always good to be with you. You're a real pro, and so it's fun to be here.
It's great. So for those who might not know your story, I guess, what led you into the ministry and passion? Because really, I mean, that was true. When I found you, there was nothing about blended families. And here I find the all-time expert.
Yeah.
So what got you into that?
Well, sometimes we get motivated by personal journeys. Nan and I were on with you talking about our book, The Mindful Marriage. That definitely came out of our personal crisis in our marriage, and that led us to help. And so we're now sharing those principles with people. The blended family ministry for me was not personal. I did not grow up in a blended family. Nan did not grow up in a blended family. We do not have a blended family now. Tell people all the time, Nan is my first wife. I'm her first husband. We've been married for 39 years. We're not going to stop. So it's not our personal story. Here's how I got into it. The other motivator for most people is professional. And for me, that's what kicked in. My first job, I was a youth minister and loved it and loved working with kids. But I had some teens in my youth program back in the mid 80s that I didn't understand. I couldn't relate to their family journeys, their situations, single parent homes, complex step family homes. And I just knew there was more there I didn't understand. So I go back to graduate school to study marriage and family therapy, not just to be a therapist, but really to have that deep clinical orientation so that I could go back into ministry and be able to help prevent problems as well as fix them when they needed fixing.
Yeah.
And so in my graduate program, I had a course that taught me, it was an entire semester on working with single parent families and step families in clinical work. And oh my goodness, did that open my eyes to all those kids and their family context that I did not understand. And I came out of graduate school going, we're not just going to do therapy with single parents and step family homes and marriages. We're going to do prevention in all of these domains, all family types. I don't care what they are. So my first job in family ministry, I was a small church in Northern California. We had a premarital program. We had a parenting teenagers thing. We did parenting young kids. We did marriage enrichment, and we did single parent ministry and step family ministry. And this was in 1993. I
Wow.
stumbled my way into working with blended families. Long story short, the more I did it, the more people wanted to hear about it, the more people asked me to do, the more opportunities I got. That led to one open door after another. And over the next decade, this took over my life. Like it was the thing that everybody needed and wanted. And I'm still going, yeah, but I'm not the guy. I'm not the expert or whatever. And this is not my story. But I found my footing. And my wife told me one day, Ron, you're the male obstetrician to the step family world, which means you, like a male obstetrician, you've never actually had a baby inside you for 9 months, but still, you know something about the process, and you can help people from that vantage point. And so I said, you know what, I'll do that. And I felt the Lord's calling, and here I am, 32, 33 years later, still doing step family ministry, and we are only scratching the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's true. It's so interesting how God calls us to do things that we think, why me?
Yeah, yeah.
I never wanted to do marriage. I wanted to keep doing kids and teenagers
Ah,
forever. And
wow.
God, and then kind of the same thing. God said, if you help their parents, you're going to help them.
That's it. You and I both. You're still doing kid ministry, and so am I. We're
Yeah,
just doing it through their parents, through the context in which they live. That's
exactly.
really the best child and youth ministry there is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So cool. So let's kind of talk about this. Couples remarried, they bring
Mhm.
children in the mix. They couple is so in love, but it's complex. What are some of the
Yeah.
common early challenges you see in blended families? And I think I don't know that I've ever worked with a blended family that they weren't completely surprised almost from the beginning of things
Mm.
they didn't even realize that they were going to encounter.
Yeah. So it really comes down to expectations, I think, for most couples. It's just a lot of things that they don't anticipate happening or them experiencing. And part of it is because dating lies.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, you know, if you've heard it once, you've heard it a million times. A couple 6 months into their blended family says, well, we were dating. We never saw any of this from the kids. We never heard any of this. And well, no, you didn't, because dating lies. People who say cohabitation is just like being married. Oh, no, it's not. Or you would be married. And you know that. That's why you're cohabiting instead of being married. You know it intuitively. And the same thing's true of dating. Nobody really, it's not real until it's real. So
Yeah.
couples fall in love with each other. They date separate and apart from their children, right? They just go out, they leave kids in their separate homes, and they go out and they date. They fall in love. They spend 2 minutes with the other person's kids. You know what I mean? Very
Yeah.
light, gradual, lighthearted Saturday afternoon fun stuff. And then all of a sudden they get married and move into a home, and they're 24/7, and they're sharing bedrooms. Kids are having to share bedrooms now. Your parenting style, my parenting style, meets head on in real life. And then they go, whoa, we didn't see this. Well, no, you couldn't. You
No.
didn't feel it. You didn't know it. The kids weren't experiencing loss as well as the challenge of trying to bond in new relationships. And so here's just a few categories off the top of my head of areas of expectation that are different. Parenting, that's huge, right? Your parent
Mhm.
style, my parent style, what your kids are used to, what I'm used to. There's the expectation that you and I are going to have time together as a couple, do husband and wife stuff. Kids are going to leave us alone. Oh no, they're invading your space constantly, and you're trying to navigate that with one of you as a step parent going, hey, honey, why don't you move your child out of the way so we can sit on the couch together? Like, that's the kind of rub
Yeah.
that you begin to experience. Financial stuff. How are we going to manage money? How come you don't want to put your money in with my money? What are you holding back from me? That tells you something about uh, pain and sadness from the past, and how
Sure.
that will creep into your level of commitment and how you think about relationships in the present. Then there's the motivational stuff with children. Children are going through grief, sadness, sorrow. What our dad died, what we want is dad back, not my new stepdad. I like my stepdad. He's fine. Mom seems to love him. That's okay. But who I want is dad.
Yeah.
And I feel weird liking my stepdad and getting along with him. Yeah. So grief bumps up against bonding of new relationships. Then there's the motivation. Adults are highly motivated towards new relationships. connecting with stepchildren, for example? Of course you are. You got married. You brought your kids or their kids or whatever combination that is into this family, and you want everybody to feel loved and safe and
Sure.
secure. And so you're highly motivated towards that. But children are less than motivated than the adults. If the adults are an 8 or a 9 on a 10 scale, usually you're a 9 or a 10 on a 10 scale. Kids are a 7, a 6, maybe a 3. If they're young adult, headed to college, living life, got dreams and thinking about the future, and the last thing they're thinking about is bonding with a new stepmom, they're a 2. Well, what is a 9 motivated stepmom and a 2 motivated stepchild? What happens when they walk in the room together? Somebody says hello and the other one says, huh, and turns and walks the other way. That's uncomfortable. It feels disrespectful. Like all of those lack of motivations start colliding with one another. I could go on and on, Kim. I mean, I've just given you a short list of the kinds of things, expectations, but let me give you the one that sort of sums them all up. And it's this. Without really thinking this, most couples, adults, parent, step-parent, are assuming that what they're doing by forming a blended family is repairing what has been lost. I'm giving my kids a dad back. I'm giving my kids a mom again. I'm giving my kids a better mom than their biological mom, who's kind of a mess, and they're with her every other weekend. But my goodness, I'm going to give them stability in the home with me and my new wife, because she's, beautiful in a dream and a wonderful person. And you are not repairing a biological family structure. You are creating an entirely new blended family structure where the rules are different, where parenting works differently, where to be a step parent is to be on eggshells, not somebody who's standing firm on the stability of a bonded relationship with a child who loves and honors you. You're a step parent walking on eggshells trying to figure out, what do you step in or step out? And when you do try to step in, the kids look at you like, who are you and why are you here? You're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do. All of that creates a totally, completely different family dynamic. And that just takes people by surprise. Let me just pause and say, it's not always a bad dynamic. It's not necessarily hard and ugly and difficult for everyone. It can be really pretty good for a lot of people, even towards the beginning. But there are things that you did not see coming. And when people get disillusioned by that, then the next thing that falls is for them to say, well, maybe we made a mistake by getting married. And now you're rethinking whether or not you should be together. That's not good for any relationship, certainly not good for the stability of the family. So people inadvertently, and it's totally understandable why people inadvertently set themselves up with expectations that they then have to deal with after life really hits. But that's the stuff that often catches them off guard, right, within the first 6 months to a year.
Oh, yeah. I think I can just say amen to all of that from what I've seen in couples. And it's so interesting because the couples really want to make it work. They
Sure.
just
High
don't
motivation.
know. Yeah, the motivation is there, but then all the kids are saying, why do his kids get this and we don't get this? And you get all things that you never even thought about that are just right there in front of you every day.
And kids who genuinely before the wedding said, yeah, I like you, glad you're hanging around,
Absolutely.
to a future step parent, can turn on a dime, because all of a sudden it's like, whoa. If I move myself towards you, if I say it this way, if I fully open my heart and let you into my heart, am I having to push dad out and step dad in? Am I having to, I don't want that. That's a disloyalty issue. And so, and oh, by the way, biological dad is over at his house when we're over there saying, hey, kids, just remember, when you go over to your mom's house, I'm your dad. Just making little remarks to the children that's pulling on those loyalties, that is in effect giving them consternation when they're with their stepfather and they don't know how to act. And then he gets disappointed because they're pushing him away. And then he goes and complains to his wife and he says, hey, why don't you get your kids straightened up? They're being disrespectful towards me. And she's like, they're not disrespectful. Or at least they're not towards her, right? because
Right.
that's a totally different relationship. And B, why are you being so hard on my kids? And now they're fighting as a couple over the children. Like, this is a common narrative that people just go, whoa, what happened and what do we do?
It is, and I think too, I've seen and I know you have too with the kids that, man, when the couples are dating, these kids get along great.
That's
They have
right.
fun together. Of course, you're
Right.
probably Disneyland on them a little bit. We're
A
going
little
fun
bit.
places,
Yeah.
we're doing fun things, but then all of a sudden you're like you said, they're sharing a room with this kid, and now things change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not real until it's real.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so, in some degree, like we have some resources for couples who are dating. One, dating in the single parent, which is sort of gets you up to the point of engagement, and then another resource called Preparing to Blend, which is okay, you're engaged, get ready for the wedding. And in both of those, we just sort of caution people: just know that your children are not lying to you when they say everything's great. They're not lying. They just actually feel that, and they don't quite feel the reality of it all
Right.
until life actually
Until they,
starts.
yeah, exactly. Um, so what happens then? Okay, then all of a sudden you get these divided loyalties.
Yeah.
One parent, their heart's between the new spouse and the kids. Everybody feels like they're losing. So how do they navigate that tension without anyone feeling sidelined? Because that's a big deal, and that's
It
a
is.
lot of balls to keep in the air.
Yeah, it is. And I'm so glad you worded the question the way you did, because that's the way a lot of the people word the questions to us. And so the first thing I want to say is, you said, how do we do this so nobody feels sidelined? Well, I don't know that you can. Somebody is going to feel sidelined, slighted. A child is going to feel, wait a minute, I sat on your lap every night for the last 5 years since you and dad divorced, and now you're sitting on his lap, right? So somebody's going to feel something.
Yeah.
That is unavoidable. But what you can do is try to mitigate that by your presence. So here's a little rule of thumb. We tell biological parents, as you're forming a new relationship, establishing, getting married in those early years of your family journey together, move toward your children even as you are moving toward your spouse. The marital relationship is absolutely critical to the success long term of the blended family. That leave and cleave stuff still applies. All right. However, what is really helpful to a child is to feel biological mom's presence, for example, so that the child does not feel like, oh, I've totally lost you to your new husband. If the child feels completely neglected, pushed aside, now there's no space in your heart or time in your heart for me, then the child is like, wow, okay, so now my stepdad is the enemy, essentially. They've stolen mom. That creates a jealousy. So what we want mom to do, if you can picture a triangle in your head, mom's connected to her husband, she's connected to her child, and then the child and the step parent have a floundering, developing relationship. But what's happening with the child and mom on that side of the triangle is really, really critical. If I have mom, if I continue to have her presence and her attention, then over time, I'm softening towards the idea of my stepdad in her life and the stepdad in my life. But if the biological mother, the big mistake is, oh, I fall in love with this guy and I just throw myself 24/7 into that new marriage, to my children have lost their biological family. They've lost dad, maybe to death. Maybe they've lost mom and dad's marriage. And now they're losing you, mom, again, in a new way to your husband. And you're expecting them to love him. Not going to happen, right? Move towards your children, even as you're moving towards your husband. Now, this means biological parents have to do a lot of work. That's a lot of emotional energy being poured out towards kids in a unique sort of dynamic, and then pouring it out towards your husband. It's in two different directions, and there's a lot of people pulling on you. It's really helpful if the stepdad in this scenario, is understanding and is graceful to say to his wife, hey, no, you go feed the ducks with the kids. I'll just hang out here at the house by myself. They need that exclusive time with mom without the stepdad. There's going to be plenty of other opportunities for the stepdad to be in the picture. That's going to happen also on the side. But if they don't get mom exclusively every now and then it makes it harder.
Yeah. No, I think that's so key.
I want to go back to one thing you said. How would you handle you talked about the dad that the kids go to over the weekend or something, and he's saying, yeah, no, just make sure you're not calling him dad,
Mm-hmm.
and things
Ugh,
like that.
so hard on a kid's heart.
Yeah, how do you fight? I mean, it's rare, in my opinion, that every parent on both sides, where there's been a divorce, remarriages, sometimes both have remarried, for them to put the kids first
Yes.
and
Yes.
and what's best for the kids.
People have good intentions, but they kind of forget. And,
Yeah,
the hard stuff spills out in front of the children, and that immediately pulls on their loyalty strings. By the way, I just realized when I was recounting all of the unrealistic expectations that sets couples up for disappointment after they get married, I left off co-parenting and the whole moving between homes and what is the other parent saying about the new step parent.
yeah,
That's huge. And the more battle there is between mom and dad, biological mom and dad, the harder it is for children to embrace their new step parents, perhaps on both sides. Maybe dad's recoupled, mom's recoupled. So there's two sets of step parents in the kids'
right,
lives and two sets of step siblings they're getting. Like, there's just a lot of complexity there that children have to navigate. And sometimes they just get exhausted, just like we get exhausted as adults. And so their emotional readiness to
hmm
like, love, get along with is just sometimes kind of dampened by all of that. So back to your question, I would say it's worth a shot. Let's set up a scenario. Biological dad in the other home is saying to the children, "Hey, look, I'm your dad. He's not your dad. Don't listen to him. He's no good." And that is clearly showing up in mom's house with stepdad. Stepdad's feeling this. Mom's feeling this. Mom
hmm
knows it's related to her ex-husband because she knows what his character's like. And so, what is mom going to do? It is worth her making a very polite phone call to her former husband. Very polite. Let me emphasize that. In order to just try and communicate how this is making it harder on his children. Her motivation, she's not going to call him and go, "Hey, look, you're making it hard for my new husband to get along with your kids by saying negative things about him." No, that's not going to help. The ex-husband's motivation has nothing to do with the stepdad, right?
You're
But
right,
for her to call and just say, "Hey, look, I know you would never mean to put our kids in a tough spot, but I just want you to know when you make remarks about my new husband, um, that does put them in a loyalty battle. And I've noticed them wrestling with that, and it's sort of a burden on their heart. I know you didn't intend that. I just want you to know that's what happens when you just sort of mumble things out loud about my husband, about our household. And then thanks for your time. Have a nice day," and hang up the phone, because don't press in for "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. I'll never do that ever again." No, just communicate it and drop it. And then make sure you're doing likewise what you want them to do for you. Golden rule, make sure you're doing that on behalf of them. You're not saying negative things to the kids about the dad,
right.
because sometimes moms are. That's number one. Try to take the direct route. But
So good.
number two is really going through the children. And this is where mom might say to the kids, where she's picking up on this, right? And she's driving Johnny to school, and it's a good opportunity. She's got 3 minutes in the car with him to just say, "Hey, look, I've noticed you making a couple of remarks and saying some things, and I just get this sense that you're kind of stuck in the middle, aren't you? You can't win for losing between your dad and your step. Of course you love your dad. I want you to love your dad. That's never going to change. You should love your father. At the same time, you're trying to figure out how to get along with my husband. Boy, that's tough for you, isn't it?" Now notice, she ends with a question. She's making a statement, but she's also asking a question and trying to open the door. She's empathizing with her child's caught in the loyalty battle. We call it the tug of war. And she's just trying to give voice to that, because most kids, and when I say kids, I mean 35-year-olds,
Yeah,
don't understand that emotional tug of
yeah,
war and how it haunts them. And she's going to open the door to that dialogue to see if she can connect with that part of her child. And then in the process, just say, "Look, I realize you feel like you got to keep your relationship with your dad alive by being mean to my husband. But I'm not going to put up with that in our home. You're going to be kind. You're going to be decent. Now, you do not have to love my husband." Kim, I can come back to that. You do not have to love my husband, but you are going to treat him decently, just like you do Mr. Jones next door, just like you do your baseball coach, just like you do your teacher at school, just like you do Pastor John at church. That's what I expect of you related to my husband. Now, sidebar. Here's what we're setting up with this. Mom is connecting to the child's loyalty battle. She's trying to give the child an opportunity to talk about it. And in the future, maybe he will if he doesn't right then. And she's also creating a behavioral expectation that you will be decent and kind to an adult in your life. The standard is not you'll love him, because you cannot demand love out of a child. That's something they decide on their time. But what she can insist on is decency, respect, basic consideration, like you would a teacher, a coach, somebody else in your world. Now that it's in that category, most children feel like they can do that without being disloyal to dad. At least it helps a little bit. Take it out of the category of, ooh, who do I love more? We're now not competing for love. We're just being decent. That might help a child a little. The child's still going to have pressure from dad. It's still going to loom. You're going to have to revisit this over and over again. You're going to have to, have some consequences when the child is disrespectful towards your husband. Follow through with that kind of stuff. But the key thing here is do not try and demand love or affection. Don't go there. That's where you get kids pushing back, saying, no, I'm not going for that.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. I think just being realistic about what you're trying to have your child do. And I think I love it. The respect, and I love the analogy between other people they are supposed to respect.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of fits in those categories, and I think it does take some pressure off of the kids.
It does. It's just one quick word. I tell therapists this very same principle. Look, if you're the person interviewing a child and talking with a child about their loyalty battles, I'll say the same thing as their counselor. I'll say something like, look, man, you're stuck. That just stinks to high head. My goodness, you can't win for losing. You do this over here, somebody's mad. You do this over here, somebody's upset with you. That is a tough place to be, huh? And we'll just sit with that for a minute. And then I'll turn the corner and I'll go, so you get along with your coach? You get along with your teacher at school? Does that bother your dad? No? Okay, well, of course not, because you're just getting along with those people. How about if you just get along with your stepdad? You don't have to love it. And I'll do the exact same thing as somebody outside that system trying to intervene in the heart and life of a child, to take them off the hot seat, to give them a break, to give them a way of thinking about connecting with their step-parent that does not require competition with their relationship with their dad. That's what they need.
That's so good. It's so good. One thing I get asked sometimes is, all my life I've been taught that God's first and my spouse is second.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like my kids should be second now that I'm in this marriage.
Yeah. I've had single parents push back and go, look, when I marry this guy, I had a lady say to me one time, no, my kids are first. And my husband's just some guy picked up alongside the road somewhere. So I just want to make sure everybody understands. Like this is an important thing. In fact, it's so important. Let me just say this. My first book, The Smart Step Family. We have 9 books in the series, by the way. Well, 2 other with other authors. So there's 11 books in our series for step families. My first one, The Smart Step Family, I got this wrong in the book. Like the way I worded it was confusing to people. I did talk about marriage as a priority. But what people heard was, abandon your children. And, no. So we did a rewrite with the revised expanded edition. And here's what we want people to hear. No, your spouse is the most important adult relationship in your world. And there is an allegiance in marriage that is unlike any other. Till death do you part. Like that comes with the territory. But your children are the most important children in your world. Of course you're committed to them. Of course you're going to continue to be actively involved in nurture, raising, discipline, and being their biggest cheerleader. That's your job as a parent. The parent heart in you needs to be committed there. The wife or husband part of you needs to be deeply committed in your marriage. So it's not a competition for who's number 1, who's number 2. It is, how do I be committed to husband or wife? How do I be committed in an appropriate way to children? That's the better journey for the biological parent entering a blended family. The marriage has got to be primo in terms of adult relationships. It should reorient the family around the marriage eventually. The marriage has to be that solid that the family, let me say that again, the family needs to reorient around the marriage. But that happens, we know, probably 5-7 years into the family journey. It doesn't happen immediately, but it starts with that biological parent's commitment to their spouse, articulating that to the children. Let me flip this over and give you an example of getting it wrong. I worked with a guy one time whose mom and dad divorced when he was 4, mom remarried when he's 5. He says, I love my stepdad. He was great. We played, we enjoyed each other, but I never respected him. And I was like, what? Hold on. Why? You love him, you enjoy him, but you don't respect him. That confuses me a little. He goes, oh, well, it's because mom told us if he ever does anything that I don't like, I'll take you kids and we'll just leave. Okay, listen. So what mom's saying is, I'm really married to you kids. I'm really not married to him. So what did that do in the heart of the child? Oh, I don't have to respect him. He's just a toy. He's just a plaything. He's over here on the side. I'm the important one, right? Therefore, he never respects his stepdad. Stepdad has no authority at all in this young man's life. So that's what happens when you get it wrong. The opposite is true when you get it right. It brings stability to the family, assuming the biological parent is also investing in their children, spending exclusive time with them on a regular basis, showing them how important they are, and continuing to be engaged in their life.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I see couples deal with is, okay, we're in this, when I work with a couple and they're just getting ready to start a family, one of the things we talk about is parenting. How are you going to do it? How are you parented? How was he parented? Let's come up with something. Well, now you've got couples coming in that have the same issues. They were parented differently, and they've been parenting their kids differently.
Yeah, for 10, 15, 25 years.
And then all of a sudden, we put it together. How would you tell, what's the best way to get on the same page with parenting, discipline, all those things that need to be done with the kids, but you're coming in and the kids have experienced different ways?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a whole chapter in our book, Preparing to Blend, on parenting. And I think it's the best little section I've ever done on helping two adults figure out how they're going to parent together. There's a systematic dialogue that we walk them through where they are learning about one another's parenting histories and what they really value and what's embedded in how they parent. And then kind of functionally moving them towards, so how are we going to do this together? Because you cannot have two different parenting styles. Your kids, my kids. You cannot have two different standards for bedtime, for who cleans up after themselves and who doesn't have to, all that stuff. It's got to be more alike than it is different. So it's a journey. It's a process. Part of it is understanding you as a step parent as an outsider in a child's life. Like, I just can't walk up to any kid on the street and start parenting them. Like, that's ridiculous when you say it out loud. Of course you can't do that. Well, some step parents try. Just because I'm here doesn't mean you own the farm now and get to tell everybody how things are going to be. You've got to do this in concert with the biological parent. You got to be a team on this thing. And so there's a lot of things where people can misstep and get off, coming together, supporting each other, being unified, creating an expectation for the biological parent, creating an expectation in their children that, look, when I'm not here, stepmom, stepdad, whoever they're in charge. Like, they're like a babysitter. They can get stuff done. They are an extension of me. It's creating that environment so the step parent has something to go on in the beginning and build a relationship over time. All of that is gradually moving these two adults closer and closer to one another to be a functional parenting team. And it just takes time and effort. The more further apart they are in their parenting styles, the harder that journey is. Obviously, the closer they are. Sometimes you get situations where he's a little older than the woman he just married, and all of his kids are 15 or over, and her kids are all 5 and under. And so all of a sudden you have, 18-year-olds going in and out of the house, drinking beer, doing whatever, because dad's always allowed that sort of thing. And mom watching her kids look at, step sibling going, whoa, can I do that? And mom's going, no, you got to shut your kid down so I can communicate the values I want to teach. And all of a sudden it's like, well, he's 18. I'm not going to shut him down. And now, we have these issues around age and, who's setting an example. Those are all tough spaces to navigate. They're not easy with just clear-cut answers. This is a husband, wife coming together, deciding together how they're going to lead from this point forward as a team. We say to people, read good books on parenting because there's an element of that in there, but you really got to read good books on step parenting because it's all of those under layers that people don't recognize are at play here. And you got to be mindful of those as well.
And be willing to take time, like you said.
Take time and
it
bend.
Does take time. So the kids, parents get on the same page or trying to, and they're trying to do things you're talking about, but the kids are pushing back. They don't like these new rules. They don't like these boundaries.
Mom, we never had to go to bed at 8 o'clock before he walked in the house.
But he was here or she was here.
So why we have to do it now? And what does mom do? Here it is. Mom says, hey, wow, you guys are smart. You figured this out all on your own, with a big smile on her face. She just said, man, you're absolutely right about that. The bedtime changed when he showed up. And you know what? Here's what happened. He and I had a conversation about this, and we made a decision that I fully support. Notice my language, right?
Absolutely.
Mom talking to her kids. Mom has the stuff. We always say biological parents have the stuff. You can get things done because your mom or your dad, and there's no disagreement about who you are in the life of that child. Step parents, however, are ambiguous in the nature of their relationship. And the kids are like, I know, but I don't know who you are in my life. So that's a tougher relationship. Biological parent can make changes, but you have to own the change. So to say, the other side of that would be saying to your kids, well, you're right. He's kind of mean, isn't he? Well, no, it's going to undo him. For her to say, well, we talked about it, but he wants you to go to bed at 8. No, that's not you owning the change here. That's you setting your spouse, the step parent, up for a rivalry with the kids. You got to own it. We had a conversation. We decided. I fully support this. Bedtime is now 8 o'clock. I realize this stinks for you. I'm so sorry about that. Now go to bed. We teach there's a 2-step process to good parenting, in particular in blended family context. The first one is acknowledge the hard for the child. Have some compassion for what's changing here for them. Remember, these kids have had 8,000 changes thrust on them since the divorce, since the parent died, since whatever. Sure. A ton of things have been changing. And here comes one more. Bedtime got changed to 8 o'clock. Have some compassion for that, but don't be paralyzed by your compassion. Step 1 is identify, but step 2 is follow through, make the behavioral move. So I get it. This is hard. I'm sorry you have to deal with another thing. Bedtime's 8. See you in the morning. Good night. Go. Yeah. Follow through. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, we tell people at that point in time. Kids are going to whine and fuss. That's what they do. Follow through. Stick with it in a gentle but firm fashion, and probably after a week or 2 at the most, they know bedtime's at 8 o'clock because mom said, and mom's holding to that. That's the deal. Will the kids be angry? People say, well, they're going to be angry at my husband. Yeah, they are. Okay, what's your point? So they're kids. You're the parent. Follow through. Why do you have to be paralyzed by them being angry or upset or what? No, you don't have to be. You get to be the parent. Just act like it. Carry on. It'll be okay. People undo themselves but my children are upset. What's your point? That's what happens in life. It happens to me all the time. I'm 59. I wish that would end, but it's not going to. We have to help our kids learn how to deal with life throwing curves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, I totally agree. I mean, I think you've just got to be the consistency with it will make a difference over time.
Yes.
And you can't throw your new spouse under the bus.
Yep.
And I think the sooner you are able to say the things that you're saying, or especially if you could say that from the beginning, the kids will. But if there was their biological parents were still together, you're still going to have the kids push back.
That's
you're
right.
Still going to be told it's not fair. You're still going to be told that my older brother gets to have a beer, and I'm just 2 years younger. Why can't I have a beer?
Okay, you just hit on something, and this is important because guilt is deeply paralyzing, and many single parents now living in a blended family, married to the step parent to their kids, feel a tremendous amount of guilt. My kids have been through so much, and they have. They're hurting over the
Sure.
death, the divorce, whatever the story is. They're hurting over that stuff, and it lingers. It's still carrying into today. They're still having to deal with aftershocks from the earthquake that happened a few years ago. Absolutely. And you don't let that paralyze you from parenting today. A lot of people feel like they need to make up for the past. And so they go soft in their parenting and they get stuck there. Kim, let me just tell you a universal research-oriented truth. I mean, this is experience and research all over the world, every culture across every continent. Here is a typical pattern in blended families. You ready? Biological parents want, they call it compassion for their kids. What they want is softness, passivity they want their kids to somebody to take it easy on them. And step parents want somebody to make the kids behave. Now that is a universal conflict in parenting.
Yeah.
And if the biological parent is unwilling to follow through, you will have battles every day of your life between kids, between step parents, between you as a couple. It undoes a family faster than anything because the biological parent is frozen. We call them paralyzed parents. And if you're frozen and remain frozen and expecting things to get better in your home, I got news for you. You're just going to have conflict, and it's going to be super hard, and the step parent's going to never feel like they're a part of the family. And it's really easy for kids, like my friend, to say, but I never respected them, because they really don't have a role in the home. And so you're the one who gets to make it or break it. Like if you support the step parent in front of your kids, if you are a team member in the parenting system, then your blended family has a chance.
Absolutely.
But if you're paralyzed, it doesn't.
It's not going to. So the wife of the new family has a couple of kids, and he's got a couple of kids. He sees her kids really disrespecting her, his new wife. When does the new step parent jump in? How do they know when it's time for me to jump in or not?
Yeah. So again, this sounds really scientific, doesn't it? Try it and see. What I mean by that is always work in concert with the biological parent. Don't do something unilateral, like just jump in there and say, I'm the new sheriff, I'm taking over. That usually backfires in 100 directions. Not a good idea. Have that behind closed doors conversation. Hey, honey, wow, I just see your kids talking back and disrespecting you. And I got to tell you, something in me rises up and I want to set them straight. But I know we got to be a team. How do you feel about this? Let's hash it out here so that we can define how we're going to deal with it out there the next time it happens. And now, hopefully, the best scenario is they agree. This needs to change. My guess is mom needs to change some things about how she responds to her own children when they disrespect her in that manner. Sure. And it may be ultimately, if mom doesn't change her posture, it doesn't matter if the stepdad jumps in. He's not going to be able to necessarily. I'm assuming they're early in the blended family journey. As time goes on, step parents have more and more authority and have more and more equity to be able to speak into things. But in the beginning, it's probably dangerous for him to just assume he can. He can try. If it backfires, then he's really got to regroup with his wife. It's really mom who's got to say, no, I don't appreciate that. You're not going to talk to me that way. And then he can come right beside her and go, yeah, guys, look, dude, that's not going to fly. You need to respect your mom. He can stand with his wife in that moment, but ultimately it's mom owning the change. We're back to that same principle. The biological parent has got to own the change.
Yeah, no, that's so good. What about, I hear this a lot. Kids, when they go to their dads over the weekend and come back, and it takes us 2 days to get things back to normal.
Yeah,
How do you integrate back home when households can be very, very different in the way things are done those 2, 3, 4, 5 days that they're with the other parent?
Yeah. Let's laugh about this a minute. I think you're a grandparent. I got one, 15 months old. We want to spoil him. That is our goal in life, is to spoil him. Guess what? When he goes back home,
You're right.
my son and my daughter, they got to fix it. Like if we've messed it up,
Yeah.
that's our job as grandparents. You know what? This is sort of natural. Like, and not everybody treats the kids exactly the same, and they need a little reorientation when they get home. Same thing happens. Mom's house, dad's house.
Yeah.
Mom's rules are a little tighter, a little stricter. She's really working hard on Christian values, teaching the kids. Dad perhaps doesn't care or is something less than that. And so, yeah, they're watching movies at all hours and playing video games 24/7. And they come back to mom's house. She's like, no, we don't do that. You get an hour a day and that's it. And what do the kids do? Well, they do what kids do. They want what they want. So they're going to try to use one house off the other. Well, dad lets us, da, 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 da. Okay, again, mom's job is to not argue with dad. She does not say to the kids, well, your dad's an idiot and he's going to go to hell and I hope it's hot. She does not say that because all that does is say to the children, oh, mom can't be trusted either. And we're not going to buy her values because she doesn't even live them herself. You can't do that. What mom says is, I get it. Your dad has different rules than me. Period. Full stop. Now turn the corner. But in this household, this is the way we do it. I love you kids. You get an hour a day. You can enjoy it. And if you continue to argue with me, I'll take that hour away. Your call.
Yeah.
Love you. Here we go. Be in charge. So many people feel like they have to parent in reaction to the other home. I'm fully aware you got to be mindful of it. You got to understand what's going over there. It's helpful to know they're watching R-rated movies because you've got some things to unpack when they're at your house. You've got some more values to try to instill, to try to help them carry the values with them into the worldly environment in the other household. But you're not competing. You're not trying to say we're right, they're wrong. Like those are the things that are off limits there. The point is, your power is in your presence, your household, your parenting, your follow through. Take a deep breath about what they're experiencing over in the other home and be the parent you need to be and just stick that out. Every one of us, we talk about this in the Smart Step family. This is really important. Like every parent sends their kid into the world, if you will. It's called school. It's called the neighborhood. It's called hanging out at the neighbor's house or their best friends, whatever. That's the world. And they're going to be exposed to all kinds of stuff in those environments that we don't get to control. We can pretty much control it when they're young, but when they get a little older, it is up, it's not up to us. So we're constantly having to teach our children Christian values and how to carry those into those environments. The same thing happens when you're sending your kid over to their dad's house or their mom's house, and she's influencing them in ways that you would prefer she didn't, but she is. It's the world. Okay, prepare your child, teach, train, talk, not for them to hate mom. That's not the focal point. The focal point is, what do we believe? Why do we believe it? What do we practice? And then you're hoping children can carry that with them.
Yeah. Don't make your ex the enemy.
No, they're not the enemy. And as soon as you go there, you're the enemy. Like it just undoes your own influence with your children.
And then kids talk, trying to get their way, and then you've got a battle going.
Right, because they're going to go over to the other home and tell the story about what you said about them. And now you got the other home fighting with you. I mean, this is just one of the greatest ironies about divorced couples is that they still fight like they did when they were married.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things we try to teach them, look, you want to be a good co-parent. I call it, you got to act divorced. I mean, you don't have the right to tell your ex what to do with their life anymore. When you were married, you tried that. Did it go well? No, it didn't. How's it going to go now that you're divorced? Like even worse, like stop pretending like you have the right to speak into their life, to tell them who to date, not to date, and how to parent the children. And you can articulate, and you should, in a calm, courteous manner, things that you prefer that they do. You should try to come together around values but after that, it is not up to you. And you got to let it go and just parent the way you want to parent.
Yeah, it's so good. Every time you talk about or see surveys about what are problems in marriage, finances always is there.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit different twist, I think, sometimes in blended families because you got child support, you got your mind, what's mine, what's yours, what are we going to do
Mhm.
with this money? What's the healthiest way for a couple to go into that or in it to make some changes so that finances is not something that's always an issue?
Let me say a few things, but let me point to a resource because this, obviously it's deep, far, and wide when it comes to money and how you're going to handle things, from retirements to names on the house to all that kind of stuff. We wrote a whole book on this, the Smart Step Family Guide to Financial Planning. I teamed up with an estate attorney who specializes in complex blended family environments and a certified financial planner. We put our brains together, and let me tell you, I'm very proud of that project because of the co-authors that I worked with. It really
Yeah.
brought a lot to the table. The Smart Step Family Guide to Financial Planning. We lay out an entire process that we call a togetherness agreement. The prenups are basically, here's what you're not going to get when I divorce you. Who thinks that's conciliatory? No. But what we did, and one of my co-authors says it this way: we took a prenup, we turned it upside down, we shook out all the animosity, and we
Yeah.
kept the best part of it, and the idea that you get intentional to plan how to care for one another. And we created a togetherness agreement that is all about how we're going to use our money to take care of each other. You, me, your kids, my kids, and any children we may have together. And the bottom line is there's a lot of creative ways of handling money. You can actually arrange this. You don't have to fight over whose name's on the house, or you need to change the beneficiary of your life insurance to just me, not your kids and me, but just like you don't have to fight over any of that sort of stuff. It's unnecessary because there are creative ways of telling money where to go and how to go, even after you're dead. You can have, for example, you got a house. I worked with a couple one time. House was in the family for generations, right? He's going to pass it down to his kids.
Yeah.
He's not going to pass it down to her kids, right? Doesn't make sense. They don't have the same commitment to the honoring the family and the legacy, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Couples where one of them has a family business. Well, my kids want the business, or one of my children wants the business. One of them doesn't. I'm going to hand it down to that child. Well, aren't you going to split it up in equal ways for your kids and my? No, you don't have to. You can hand that down to the family business, but you can create a life insurance policy that's just for your new spouse and or their children, that's totally separate, that provides for every need they have, that doesn't mess with the family business. What really gets in the way here is jealousy, is fear. You're taking care of them, but you're not really married to me. You're not really committed. And people start reading those fears and those pains into their money decisions, and it really messes things up. So we really unpack this in the book, and then get deeply practical about caring for kids, saving for college, cars, computers, all that kind of stuff that's going to come down the road eventually. And I think it's a great resource that's useful for people.
Yeah, and we'll put that all in the show notes because you have so many good resources that can help people. Because finance is going to be an issue. It is, and so to have a plan
and the last thing I'll say about that is that people aren't sure about what you just said. They are scared of the subject, and they don't want to plan. They don't want to bring it up. I've just seen that a lot, in particular when they're dating, because it feels like this is throwing water on our fire, our romantic fire here. You want to talk about money? Why do we have to do that? Can't we just love each other and trust each other? And yeah, but you got a 401k and so do I. What are we going to do with this stuff? You got a house, so do I. Are we going to sell them? We're going to buy together? Whose names? Like, there's lots of legitimate stewardship questions that need well thought out responses, rather than just a reactive, well, if you don't do that, you don't really love me sort of reaction. That's not the case more often than not. It is about logistics. It is about stewardship. And so there's a lot to consider here.
If you were going to bring in a third person to help a couple, what would you look for in that person?
Like a therapist, for example?
Well, or even probably somebody can really help them, like you were saying, be creative with the finances too.
With money. Well, yeah. Well, here's what we learned when we released the book. We started sending it out to financial planners to just educate them so that they could help the couples they work with. And what we found is that the financial planner said, oh my word, never did I understand why these couples always had these arguments, but now I see behind the scenes what's going on. And we found they were just as educated as were couples who were needing the money solutions. And so what I say to couples now is, look, you buy 2 copies, one for you, one for your financial planner. Ask them to give it a quick read and then go and sit down with them and have them help you. You're going to help them understand a few things about blended family dynamics. They're going to help you understand the financial world and your options. And you're probably going to get to some really good solutions and walk away feeling committed, feeling together, feeling more close, not distrusting and separate.
Yeah, that's good. What about the spiritual connection between a couple in a blended family?
Yeah. Oh, it's so very important. The church is more of a blended, you always say the church is a family. Well, it's actually more of a blended family than it is a biological family. Did you know that most of the families in the Bible are step family configurations of one sort or another, often with, somebody having multiple wives, but the dynamics in those stories in Genesis, for example, look a lot like modern day blended family. My point is this. Jesus had a stepfather. My point is this. This is not new. God meets people in their family journey, always has, always will. That the past, you may have some sin to repent of. That may be why you're in a step family, because you committed some sin. I interviewed a woman for our Family Life Blended podcast just yesterday who had an affair with the man who became her husband. That ended his marriage. She was freshly divorced. There was a lot of things that were wrong in that whole start. And it caused a lot of difficulty for their new blended family. They had to repent of that stuff. Sometimes that happens.
Sure.
But you don't, just like the rest of us, just because yours was divorce and remarriage doesn't mean that you get into a category where you're beyond God's grace. God has always worked with imperfect people. He has always refined, taught, led, and it is the Spirit of God who is working in us through our families, I would add, through our relationships to help mature us. So walk with God. Don't be afraid of God. Enjoy what he's teaching in Scripture about life and relationships and follow that. And you'll find that is a huge advantage to your blended family.
Yeah, that's good.
Keep going your own way. This family is going to have as much difficulty as the last one did.
Yeah, for sure. So what kind of blended family, what should they expect from their church?
Well, I wish I could say they can expect a lot, but I really cannot say that. I've been in this space for over 3 decades. We are getting more and more leaders paying attention, but it's still only a small fraction. We don't have any good numbers on this. By the way, Family Life just collaborated with Barna, and just recently, Barna released a new report on the state of the family. And here's a punchline: 53%, over half of parents with children under the age of 18. Those kids are in complex family environments, single parent, moving between homes, step family, or eventually will have a step parent in their life. Over half, right? This is a huge segment of the population in the local church and around the local church. However, our estimate is that less than 1% of churches nationwide in the U.S. will do anything for blended families over the next 12 months. Less than 1%. There's a lot of reasons for that. We can go into it. We're sort of guessing, but we do have some good insight into why that is. The point is, a lot of blended family training is grassroots. We do once a year an in-person 2-day training for people who want to do ministry in a local church to help blended families. The vast majority of people who come to that are blended family couples themselves. They're the ones who are motivated to have a small group, to have a Sunday school class, to do something to help people. We are seeing more and more leaders who are interested, premarital counselors, for example, who want to know how to do that differently. Of course, it should be very different. But the numbers are few and far between. So what we tell couples is, you got to start it. You need to study for yourself, get a few couples, go to lunch, sit down and talk once a month, or do something on a regular basis. We have curriculum like crazy that we can hand you that you can do. The point is, we try to make it easy, but you got to be motivated to make something happen. And then go to your pastor and share some of our ministry resources with them. We have a certificate in blended family ministry people can do online at their own pace. Very easy to do. Cost you $49. Churches can do this. They can get in the game, and they need to. because it is a significant segment of the population in a local church and around the local church. We just need people bringing it up and
Yes,
making them think about it.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, because when there's a divorce, we know how that affects a
Oh,
church.
exactly.
Usually, they're probably not both going to continue to go to that church.
Right.
The giving's going to change, and so yeah, how do we handle this? Make this new blended family, feel welcome and not. I've had blended families that felt judged, and
Yes.
basically, I just tell them to find another. That's really not where you need to
Yeah.
be right now.
Yeah. If you're getting that a lot, sometimes it's self-imposed. Some couples are putting a lot of shame on themselves and they're just assuming everybody's judging them. But there are other times where that's absolutely what's happening.
Where it's overt, yeah,
And you
absolutely,
just need to find another place.
yeah.
Or, start a dialogue from within if you feel courageous enough to do that and see if you can't get them to rethink some things. Sometimes it just takes one agent of change to, spark some conversation.
Absolutely. That's good. Okay, last question. You could give one piece of encouragement to a couple that's in a
Mhm.
blended family. They feel discouraged, they feel disconnected right now. What would that be?
You are not alone, and you do not have to figure this out on your own. When I started 33 years ago, there was one Christian resource I could find on step families, and it was good, and it went out of print. You couldn't get it anymore. And now, honestly, Kim, Family Life Blended, the ministry that I run for Family Life, we have produced more materials in the last 14 years than the whole Christian community has in the last 50 years. We have audio, we have video, you can read, you can watch, you can listen, podcasts. We have free video curriculum, 8-session curriculum online. We've got a live event we do every year called Blended and Blessed that churches can live stream. In 2026, it will be free for churches to host, for couples to watch anywhere in the world. This is a one-day marriage seminar basically for blended family couples. It's new every year. We've done 10 of these, and they are all available online. So there's about 80 hours of ministry training that's available online. We have probably, I'm trying to do the math, 60 hours of curriculum that's available online, 12 books, 170 podcasts. Like, you cannot say there's not help, right? You get to pick if you're a reader, a watcher, a listener, or an experienced person. You want to go to an event. We got all of that, and it's just waiting for you. Don't sit back and try to figure this out on your own. Jump in and start learning.
Yeah, that's so good. And you have, I guess when I first found you, it was the Smart Step Family, and that was it.
That was
at
it.
that time. And
We had one book. And by the way, this is sort of fun for me. In 2027, that will be the 25th anniversary of that book. It's gone through a revision. I'm going through it and doing a new revision. So it'll be hot,
updated.
current. It's still one of the top 5 selling step family books on Amazon even after 23 years at this point. We got tons of great resources that are available for people. You do not have to do this alone.
Well, and that's when obviously I wanted to have you on, but for people to know and to know there's resources available, because most people don't,
right?
And they don't know where to search, and so if they want to find you, where's the best way to find you?
Yeah, so I'm affiliated with Family Life. I have some personal websites. The easiest place to go where you can get connected to all of that is rondeal.org, rondeal.org. And you'll be able to get platformed into Family Life Blended, Smart Step Families, the Mindful Marriage Conference we're doing, which applies to blended family couples as well as couples in first marriages. And so, just get tied in.
Yeah, if you missed the podcast Ron and I did a few months ago, go back and look at that, because the mindful marriage is marriage changing for sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And we wrote that book for all couples, but I got to tell you, I think it's the most important book I've written for blended families, because it gets all the way down underneath all of the external dynamics, and it drills down into, but what do I do and how do I manage me when I'm feeling unsettled or insecure or we're in conflict? What do I do with a child, with a spouse, with an ex? That book, The Mindful Marriage, really drills into what you can do in those spaces. And We think it's really good. We, as I told you on that podcast, we didn't create it. We're teaching Dr. Terry Hargrave's principles, but we're just giving our life testimony to how much it's changed us along the way.
Absolutely. And it's so powerful material. This has been great, as always. It's always good to see you and spend time with you. So honored to be your friend. And I love what you and Nan do and the many people you've helped. And thank you for being here today and sharing with our audience.
Well, it's an honor to be with you again, Cam. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Awesome Marriage Podcast. I'd love it if you rated and reviewed today's podcast. It helps other people find us. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please do, and you will never miss an episode. And boy, we have some great episodes coming up with special guests, Nancy and I talking about marriage, and my solo podcast digging deep into some real tough topics. We'll see you next week.